Hello, Carrie, and welcome.
Hello.
So good to have you here in these mentor sessions, interviews that I'm kind of doing. They don't have an official name, but you're the third one of the mentors that I'm interviewing. So super happy to have you here.
Thanks.
So I'm going to introduce you, and maybe we can make it more of a conversation so that you tell me a bit more about the things that I just dropped.
Yeah.
And let's go through who you are.
Okay.
So Carrie is a single mom of 4, and I have a feeling that you mentioned that first because that's very important.
Oh yeah. It makes me who I am for sure.
Yeah, and they are ranging 20 to 10 years old, right? That's
Exactly.
exciting. Yeah. And you are from South Carolina originally?
I spent most of my time there, but I was East Coast kid, born in Pittsburgh and grew up in Virginia, Central Virginia, and then went all over the place and ended up in South Carolina for quite a long time. And now I'm in Washington State.
Wow, exciting. Can you share a bit of why you moved across the country?
Across the country. So I think that I grew up in right outside of Richmond, Virginia, in a town called Petersburg / Ettrick, and it's where the Civil War ended. And so growing up, I was very much around kind of the history and those reenactments. And this is a unique vision of kind of the past meeting the present and what this country is about, and I'm grateful for that. But with that comes a really heaviness of unresolved issues in the United States. And so I moved down to South Carolina to work, and I followed my now ex-husband, but down there, he was a city planner, and he's from that area. And I picked up a job with a program called TRIO Upper Bound. So it was one of the 8 TRIO federal U.S. Department of Education TRIO programs. And so I was in Title I schools, which means I was in some of the poorest of the schools. And the have and have nots gap in Charleston is huge. Like you have these $1 million homes, and then you have these, others. So unfortunately, what ends up happening is about almost 10 years in, a little bit, about 10 years in of being there, there's some stuff that kicks off with Walter Scott's murder in the backyard of my former students, and the Mother Emanuel tragedy, where we lost one of my other program librarians and some family friends and connections there. And so it was just overwhelming as a Black single mother in the South whose last child is a boy. And I needed a peace of mind. And so I joke kind of that, or tongue in cheek, I should say, that I moved to Washington State as a refugee in my own country. Like I just needed peace, and life was hard, but it didn't have to be that hard. And I needed to stabilize myself, because at that time I had 3 girls moving into teenage years, and I knew if I didn't plant some roots, I was going to be swept away by the teenage years. And so on Mother's Day of 2018, I called my sister, who was already at Washington State University, and she had kind of been nudging me to come that way, but I'm stubborn. Hats off to my Irish heritage, my Scott-Irish heritage, but I'm very stubborn. So I finally, it had to be my idea. I finally said, you know what, I'm ready. Will you help me raise the kids? Will you go in with a house with me so we could both be there, but I could move the 4 kids across the country. And with the help of my parents and some really great friends, I was able to do that, which allowed my kids to kind of fall apart to come together, if that made sense. Like it was a safe place. I got incredible help, mental health care and some other things. We all had been through trauma, not only me personally, but the family and the community in which we came from. And so it took a minute. My oldest says that this is, we come from BET, and that was which is a Black entertainment channel over here in the United States, and she and this was Hallmark, which it was, because we have a lentil festival and everything, like lentil festival family. It is really surreal. Kind of, you feel like you're stuck in a Hallmark movie, but it was the best decision I ever made, because then COVID hits. Washington has pretty progressive things. I have 3 girls. One of the reasons I moved to Washington is because it's close to Canada, just in case I needed to hop over. the border or find asylum. And with, you know, the overturn of Roe v. Wade, and my 3 girls, I'm in a place where they are most likely, right, to get the health care and the attention and the respect on their bodies that they deserve. And so we'll do it all over again. The hardest thing I've ever done, one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I would do it again for what it's
I get
brought.
the chills when you say that. When you say that. Were you able to get your trio job, like your director of the federal U.S. government education plan? Were you able to get that job moved to Washington?
No. So what ends up happening is there are thousands of programs. So the trio office has 8 different programs. One's a training program, and there are 5 that are pre-college, so work in high schools and middle schools, and there are 2 that are collegiate. I've done both collegiate, both student support services and McNair. I've run both of those programs, and I've run some of the pre-college. And so what ends up happening is there's similar job openings. Every program looks a little different across the country because your demographics are different, but it's a national program. So if you can locate other programs, it's usually easier to get that job. And I had the experience, and I was stepping down actually, or stepping across, I should say. People were like, well, you've been a director before, you've done this, but I was making an intentional choice to relieve myself of some of those directing duties because I have 3 teenagers who I need to be present for. And if anybody's been there and done that, you know that that's a lot of energy, but absolutely worth it because they're about to launch the nest, right? It's one of your last attempts. So I did. I came back down to academic coordinator and loved it. Had an amazing team and bosses. And
can you speak a bit more about the job to do that? How you help students in this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So what we end up doing is unfortunately, okay. So back in 1965, President Lyndon B. Johnson declared a war on poverty. And in this war on poverty, one of the things that we found was that the bachelor's degree, the 4-year degree in the United States, was still the best, strongest indicator of whether a family is going to live underneath the poverty level or not. And so we created these programs to get students to and through higher education. That what TRIO comes from is there are 3 original programs, right? So it ends up growing as it goes. And so my job in SSS, which is that middle program, is the retention arm of the campus. So when they get accepted and they accept to come to Washington State, we basically bring them in and we are their navigators. We help them figure out what this looks like because these students, the majority of them, did not grow up with the social capital of talking about college at the dinner table or the experiences that it brings.
What is their background normally? What is their background?
Yeah, like they don't have it, right? And some of them are first-time professionals. Like I have a lot of migrant worker children. From mixed documentation families, just a lot of just newness, right? And they're amazing students because they're pioneers, right? The progenitors, they're cutting the path. They have the ability to change the generational direction of their whole family. That's a lot of weight, right? Like that's a lot of weight. So I'm there to basically lend them my confidence. At this point, I liken myself to a deep ocean rescue worker. Like I have the ability to kind of be in my helicopter. I know what certain things and situations look like. I can spot a student and see if they're in trouble. I know if I need to drop out the helicopter and physically get them, or I can guide them over the bullhorn to the shore. I'm at 20 plus years in this business. I'm really able to just help identify, amplify, and direct, right, their strengths. Because the assumption, the given in my program is that you're here on purpose. You're on purpose, and my job is to help you get in your purpose. And I really don't care what that looks like. You get to decide what that is. And I am here to get you to the table so you can flip them, or you can change it. Because the truth is, particularly in this country, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And we have incomplete solutions in the United States because we have incomplete stories. And we have this really monolithic body of control that doesn't take other experiences? And why wouldn't you talk to the most marginalized, historically marginalized groups in this country who have made it work, who are historically resilient, and have incredibly creative ways, right, to continue to be that way, and also make it through a system that wasn't necessary, that wasn't built for them, right? So that's what I get to do every day. I get to basically just pour into people's lives and pump them up and advocate for them on the senior executive levels for what they need and what we, as particularly as a public institution, are supposed to be serving our students.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's really, really cool. Yeah, I want to talk about your consulting company, but let's do that later because I will be better later. So, and now I want to, now that we have a bit of the whole picture, well, not the whole picture, but a picture of you and you, what you do and your life. You've said, well, first, we've met in the Building a Second Brain course from Tiago Forte, where you've been a mentor for 5 times, same as I do. So we've been mentors for 5 cohorts. And I've watched many of your mentor sessions. I always learn a ton. And I have actually, when I looked you in my second brain in Notion, I found a ton of quotes from you. So it was super easy to prepare for these interviews. Like, oh, I have all of this Carrie material already saved here. That's like, yeah, that was like the perfect second brain on point. Yeah.
Glad I could give that to you.
Totally. And something that I always take from your session is you say that you lead, how you lead is deeply connected to your life. That's what I really love. Like, you don't disconnect your life from your work or anything. So can you speak about that?
Yeah, I think that I can't. You know, it's funny because people are like, oh, it's not, you know, it's not personal, political, whatever, but the political is personal when you come into the world looking like this in this country. And I am really very much America's child. Like, I am the ancestor of both the enslaver and the enslaved, right? And I am the representation of what happens when this world, you know, comes together. And so I think the world has had enough of people trying to copy each other. And I lead because of my single motherness. I had to learn to lead. If you ever tried to get 4 children to agree on dinner, then you know, like, that is an executive function. And so a lot of what I realized was a lot of my parenting skills directly moved over into the workforce and the way in which to motivate and move people without crushing spirits, and, you know, that tenuous of setting boundaries and also supporting. And so, but most of all, I think you'll see it in my coaching, you'll see it in my leadership, is that the will for people to be free, to trust themselves, to believe that they don't, like, they're not missing anything. Imposter syndrome, which is really a phenomenon, not a syndrome, it's not, you know, a sickness, is something I really hate, because it innately states that somebody's doing it right, that there is a model of what success or what you should be feeling or doing looks like. And I think one of the biggest issues that we're facing in the world, but particularly in this country, is the idea of self-ownership, extreme ownership. And extreme ownership is like, I get to dictate what I feel, and I get to articulate that, and I get to decide how that shows up in the world. And I know you feel like you know me better than I do, but you don't. And that confidence that I think it's so important, that self-assurance, that not that you're going to get it all right, but I will figure it out, that I have what I need, that I do know what my folks need or what I need. And so very much, I couldn't, because I'm one person, I couldn't separate work and home like that. It had to be a blend in order to get the job done and deliver. I also didn't have a lot of mentors to follow. I had some great mentors, but nobody was single parenting on you know, a mid-level, senior level management, higher education, going through a divorce at the time and all that. So I've had to learn over the whole productivity study, which began with Stephen Covey and Julie Morgenstern back in the early 2000s. I had to learn to take the meat from the bones. I was not going to find someone who I could mimic, but I had to create my own mentor by taking pieces that worked for me and shaping it in the way that spoke to me so that I could be successful.
That's amazing. And I think it takes a lot of courage to do that, to see these productivity gurus that are out there and to say like, no, that doesn't work for me. I have to adapt it to work, to really make a difference for me, which is all that's all what it's about, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, let's get into PKM specifically.
Okay.
Okay. And for those who are listening and have no idea what PKM is, personal knowledge management. I really like the spin you give to it, and you speak about PKM for caregivers and supervisors. And a lot of times we see, that's what you just said about having these models of people how to do it. We have a lot of content creators. We have a lot of people who use it like only for work and separate. We have a lot of people who use it for academic purposes, who just like manage information and knowledge and use it for that. But you were like, no, this is not enough. I need to go the next step and adapt PKM to my whole life and use it as all of the roles, all of the areas that are present in my life. So if you can, like, I think you're one of the most loved mentors in BASP, and that's for a reason, because everyone, yeah, it's true. And because everyone's just amazed at this step you took. It's like, no, guys, I'm sorry. This has to be more, and this has to serve me for all of that I do. So I would love to hear about that. And
yeah. So code, which is capture, right? Organize, distill, and express. I code for life, meaning that I use it to express my unique voice and choices. So coding for me is much more like an asana, a movement, a weekly, monthly, yearly flow of how I reflect and make choices around my life and leadership and who is in my inner circle and who's not, and kind of what that looks like. So it's almost a meditative movement, right? That includes incredible pragmatic application. So one of the biggest things that frustrates me in higher education is this like air talk. I call it air talk. Like we have all these theories and whatnot. I remember getting in conversation with a philosophy professor who was a little older and just stuck in a certain way of thought. And we were talking about life and birth and whatever. And he was mansplaining and gaslighting me like nobody's been. I was pregnant at the time now. And he was like, no, but you're wrong. I'm like, sir, all due respect, like I am literally on my 4th kid. I am growing a foot as we speak. And you are talking to me like I don't understand the process of creation. And I told him, I said, you know what? You guys are going to die out if you don't switch. Your profession is going to die out if you don't get it together. Right. But I think it's about when you come from several historically marginalized populations where your voice is suppressed and or consumed for other people's benefit, it is my contribution to the revolution to cultivate and to code authentic expression that is needed and to give voice to people's lived experience. So for instance, one of the biggest things I teach about around social movements is, and I'm coming from the Black woman standpoint because that's what I am, is that, in the women's suffrage movement, that wasn't our fight. Us working, myself, Latinx women, like us working outside the home was already happening, had been happening for a while. We didn't get the vote when everybody else got the vote. Like there was just a lot of things that our needs were put aside for the good of the order. Same thing happens in the civil rights movement, right? Like Black women are like, hey, yo, what about us? And they're like, okay, but for the good of the order, we'll get to you. And 2022, and we still here, right? So even though we've been telling people forever, and it's funny because, and I'm going off on a little tangent, but it's funny because around here, people have been like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do, Roe v. Wade? And I have to be really honest with you. I'm like, I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I feel no guilt. I have not only voted, but I am in the trenches every day, supporting women and communities and giving them options and access to things that they haven't had. So I don't feel any way about it because one, this happens. Welcome to my world. Like, I never expect the government to protect us. It is no surprise. Like, they've never been my savior. You know, I'm just trying to get on the bus that's going to get me closest to home. I know I have no expectation to get dropped off at my door, right? This is not Uber. This is public transportation in San Francisco. So, you know, so I say all that to say that I really use it. And I didn't realize it because I was doing all this before Tiago came along. What Build a Second Brain helped me do was articulate the anatomy. And so right now, actually, PKM for me means much more productivity and knowledge management systems. You know, and I come from the personal standpoint because I find that I'm reading a great book right now called Extreme Ownership. And it's about these Navy SEALs and to be a leader in this day and time, you have to own. You can't be like, oh my gosh, should I say this? Should I get permission? You have to find your center in what you know and move on it, because people, and this is Gallup, right? People need to be able to trust you. You've got to build trust quickly. You've got to show compassion and understanding of people. You have to provide some stability. Everything can't be in flux at once, particularly when the world has lost its mind. And last but not least, you got to create some hope. And to do that, you have to be clear as a leader or as a supervisor or a parent or whatever, as a caregiver, about what you're about and what season you are in your life. So say I want to be a PhD, which I do, right? I'm now pursuing. I wanted to do that since my oldest girl was a baby, you know, but life happens. And I had to defer, right, that dream, but I didn't let it go. And I realized that if I put in the toil and the work now with these children, I won't have to undo it, you know, the world won't have to undo it when they get out here. So let me be present in what's before me at this moment. And as I've, you know, I'm the second child's being launched out the nest next month, I'm able then, you know, room is created and I've already coded that into my next expression or act of service engagement.
That's so amazing. And I remember this is not from a second brain. This is something that stuck with me from you. I remember you saying that your second brain serves you as the soil. You just mentioned soil, and that triggered me. That is the soil.
Sorry.
Oh, good. The soil for your next chapter in your life. That you create there. You start to create what kind of relationships you want to have when your children leave, because that will be another more room that you have for.
Yes, I get to be with people who I choose to be with versus having to be parents of my children's friends. So yes.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's like that. Your second brain, your system can be soil for that, for creating.
Oh, absolutely. Right. You have a storehouse. And so for me, and you know, those of you who are familiar with para, so you know, projects, areas, reference or resources. And archives. And the idea behind that is that you're organizing by actionability, which was a huge breakthrough for me, which I was really missing in my system. But it's the second brain. Like that para system is the second brain. The productivity part, actually, the action happens outside of that second brain. I think a lot of people confuse the two, because the anatomy is still being articulated in our profession or this particular, you know, circle of conversation.
Mostly with projects, right? Like that.
And so as an educator, I'm able to quickly pick up where the rub, I call the rub is, like what's the tension. And usually it's, you know, when you write a paper, you should free flow, free flow, and then you can edit later, but both the editor and the creator can't be in the room at the same time. Like they will hinder each other. They will shrink in the presence of each other. So you've got to, same thing with thinking and doing. You've got to find where you can have this second brain with all this information in it, but you don't need to be looking at it every day, or you are going to be overwhelmed and you don't have a good inventory of time and how long it takes you to do something. And so you need to pull out your actions that can be supported by projects. So, you know, and you're good to go. And some people, when they start, are trying to make one tool do everything. And I think what's really important to understand is that you have a system, not just a second brain. Like you have arms and legs and feet and all this other stuff, not just a second brain. And I think people, if you use the body as an example, I think it's easier to understand than my task manager or my hands, right? It's just, I think, again, that's an area where I'm really trying to help illuminate that.
Yeah, to connect the dots, right? That's super important. Yeah, we need that. So go ahead with that, please.
Yeah, and eliminate suffering, right? Because the issue is, which we get this a lot. Well, what am I doing wrong? Just tell me what to do, and why isn't this working? It's like, because it's not working for you, and it gets to not work for you, and you need to figure out what works for you. And that's scary when people are responsible for themselves. And I think ultimately that's what freedom is: your ability to choose and to feel like you have the right to choose. And I may not always agree with what you choose, but I absolutely believe you have the right to choose for yourself. Because I don't know you any better than you know you, and I don't know me, you don't know me any better than I know me. And that's true freedom, I think, and autonomy and respect. And so it's about what works for you. There's no A+ on this, or there's no grade. It's, does it work? Even if it's all over the place. Is it organized chaos? Great, go for it.
Yeah, and don't change it. If it's working, don't change it. Yeah.
Right.
Staying with para, you've mentioned the organization method that Tiago teaches. I've heard you say that para is a mirror. Tell us more.
Yeah. Okay, so para, it's funny, if you look at, I'm moving things over now, and I've adopted Asana as my project management because I have people that I have to delegate, and I don't have time to learn Notion. And it integrates with my work stuff. It's got permission already, so path of least resistance. If you take a true inventory of what's on your mind and what you think you're responsible for, and then that tells you one thing. Then the exercise I love to do once you do that is, what are the things you have to do? Like, you'll get fired if you don't do them, or somebody's going to die. You're going to go to jail because you do your taxes. Like, what are the things you have to do on that list? What are the things you want to do? And then what are the things that other people want you to do? And when you do that test, it's really telling where your willpower or where your choices lie. And the truth is, I try to then work with folks to, let's reclaim some of that power, right? Let's reclaim some of that so that you can cook with a closed oven door. I think part of what happens is we're leaking energy. And I'm working on a new system called EMS, Energy Management Systems, where we're trying to do this big thing, and we're like, why can't it happen? And it's because we're leaking energy. Like, we're not efficient in that. We can have it all, but we cannot have it all at once. My life has taught me anything, it's that. And being very intentional around what you're giving your energy to. And the older you get, in my opinion, the more efficient you should get, but also the deeper you go in what you're trying to do. You're not trying to do, you don't no longer do I feel like I'm trying to prove myself. I'm trying to improve myself in the areas that are important to me. How do I know what those areas are? I've been journaling about them or reflecting on them weekly for the last 12 to 15 years, right? So I truly know myself. And as we know, our brains are made for having ideas, not holding them. And it's really hard to meet yourself if you don't bring yourself outside of your head and onto the page or on a video that you're watching or whatever that looks like. So para is if you're brave enough, and I'll hold your hand if you need to, is a very telling insight. And I say that as someone who's going through this right now as she's adjusting her systems for her new season, on whether you're congruent in what you say and what you're actually doing. Is the actual, and Carrie and Demir Bentley really talk about this in their new book, Winning the Week, which is so good, because one of the things, I have a really good friend who is used to be in the NBA, but is a basketball referee for the SEC, which is one of our big conferences out here in the United States. And he says, and particularly about baseball, because he used to play that too, he said, the ball should interrupt the swing, but the focus is the swing. So the focus is your life. The focus is, can I win the week? Can I put my energy where I want to? Can I observe myself on that swing? And a week's a great thing because you can have a bad day. you know, and a month is too long, but a week is a really perfect sprint to get a cadence going where it doesn't break your soul, but it also challenges you. And so I said to him the other day, I'm like, oh my goodness, you know, John, my swing is my week.
Oh.
And the things that come up in the week and the things that show up in the week, right, is the ball. But I'm in perfect position to hit it out the park, or I'm practicing that swing and hitting out the park. Because if you hit a ball too soon, it's out of bounds. You hit it too late, it's out of bounds, right? It's going on either side of you. But if you learn just to follow through, you stop, take your eyes off the ball and concentrate on your swing, which is, how do I organize my energies? What am I choosing versus what do I have to do? It allows you to relax around the things you have to do, and you get it done. And you're a happier, healthier person when you relax into, again, that rhythm versus focusing on these multiple balls you got to juggle.
That's so cool with the baseball analogy.
Isn't it? I was like,
it's super
dude,
cool.
you got one
So
there.
cool. I love it. And it goes well with flow because like swing,
yes.
flow, so it has that too. So yeah, it's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna write that in my second brain after we finish.
Okay, cool.
I have a lot in my Carrie map. I have a lot about your life areas, how you prioritize that,
right,
instead of projects, how you like switch the para kind of.
And
yeah, say, like, areas are first. I'm area based. Your area focus.
Well,
right?
yeah, I would say my top area are like areas of focus. My A and para, maybe it's apara, but in my A and para is areas of responsibility. Mm-hmm. So, or something where it has that my attention, and each of those life areas has areas of responsibilities in it, right? So I've created a situation where, actually I can probably pull it up. I've created a situation where this is myself. And, you know, in many of people ask me, why do I take myself out of my home kind of realm? And it's because I found that I do not pay attention to myself if it's mixed in with people who need me. I really had to make a concerted effort to pull literally what I needed to do for myself to be healthy, to serve in my other 5 areas. So myself is 0, 0, right? Which includes my systems. It includes my focus, my attitude, my stamina, which is my physical health, my time management and reading, learning how long it takes me to do certain things so I can be a better woman of my word. And then last is systems. Like, systems are what support me and support my well-being. And so that's really for me. So those are those areas of responsibilities in which I'm working on. You know, my home has, you know, we talk about a CEO. I'm the family CEO, and you know, the CEO part is a homemaker. It is the parent. It's the daughter. It's that really gives culture to the home. The CFO is a financial officer. The CIO is all those doggone records we have to keep, you know, for whatever. You know, the CO is operations. So what are some routines that we keep in the house to keep our house neat and nice, and we feel good in it? It's also teaching my kids how to, you know, do this next thing and be part of a team. And then the CHO is the chief health officer, which when you have 4 kids, you're always talking to. I'm paying somebody's medical school bills off, that's for sure. So that's that idea. And what that helps me to do is it allows me to have a section where I'm loving on my family, but it's also a business, to be quite honest. And a marriage is like this, a relationship, like you have the logistics and the business side of relationships, right? Whether that's, we're going to buy this house, we're going to do this something. And I found, you know, I always say I had a successful marriage that ended in divorce. The lessons I've learned from that is you've got to be very intentional about separating the two so they don't start to erode upon each other. So you treat it like a team. The difference between a team and a group is a team has a united goal, right? A target to hit, and you're moving towards that target. And it helps you filter and evaluate questions and circumstances and opportunities that come through for you. The second piece is, you know, you have the actual love and the romance and whatnot in the relationship, which is what feeds your soul. So if you're not careful, and you don't come to agreement, a group is just two people who happen to live in the house together, but a team are people who are moving towards, a specific goal, understanding that relationships, and I'm not just talking about romantic relationships are a contribution to the world. They are kind of a ministry inside themselves. One of the things, one of my business partners is this huge burly ex-football player / great public intellectual who runs some of these trio programs and trains across the nation. Our relationship, we've been 15 years of just business partners and just raising kids together and seeing us all go through our different seasons is, really just a dear, dear friend. Our relationship, his respect for me and the way in which that shows up in front of our students, and we have a lot of students together, former students together, was a contribution. It was one of the first Black kind of coupling that they've seen with respect and mutual support. And he greatly respects my intelligence and my opinion. And it just really was a beautiful thing to be able to offer our students, right? That experience. And so that goes back to me coding and parent, all of that is like, how do I use my life to serve? Like, instead of being like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do for service, this is how do I make it easier for myself, to be quite honest, and just integrate it into the way I'm living and choosing my relationships in life so that I feel congruent, right? And I feel like I don't have to do more, because just by nurturing certain relationships, other people benefit. Right? So me nurturing a relationship with my children absolutely is going to benefit the world, because they're going to go out and be productive citizens and kind-hearted and good stewards of the earth and all those things. And so, yes, I need to be intentional about that in the conversations I have and the way they think about people and the way they think about humanity. I get 18 years, if I'm lucky, right, to plant those seeds and to water that soil. And then it's like, all right, baby, let's the increase, the what blooms, I'm not in control of. I just have to make sure I feel good about what I planted and how I nurtured it.
That's amazing. And we've talked about motherhood before.
Yeah.
When we met in California. Yeah. And you're not only a mentor to all of your students and building a second brain, but I consider you also my mentor, because whenever I've had a question about anything, you've answered it like with all that you got, with all your heart. And I'm so grateful for that, because I'm 32 now. I'm thinking about asking these questions, like, do you want to be a mother? Like, It's time to ask those questions now. And like having your example, not only your answers when I ask you, like, what do you think? Tell me your experiences, and I listen to you a lot, but seeing you, how you embody that motherhood, and like you prioritize it, but you say, me, I have to go first for that to work. That for me is such a relief in the sense of like, I see you doing this stuff, being a mentor for building a second brain, doing other stuff, and I understand and I see that you say your children are your priority, but they're not the only thing in your world. And
they can't be, right? Because that's a lot of pressure on a kid. Like when you're trying to live your life through your children, it's just a disservice, right? They're not here. I joke, like, I don't know how to knit a hand together. You're a host. You have nothing to do with the process. If you decide to carry a child, it literally is going to go however it wants to go. You have no control. And the idea that this child is here to fulfill all your dreams is selfish, to be quite honest, right? Like to take care of you, yes, in your older age, hopefully, but it's really about your opportunity to contribute to the healing of mankind by supporting what they should do. And every one of my children teach me something I need to learn about myself. So, that's another one. But I also will say this, one of the things I remember when I was going through my divorce, I was I was very pregnant with my fourth, and my mom was just sick with worry about me. And she was like, I just want to make sure you're taking care of yourself. And I was like, Mama, I love you dearly, but I never saw you take care of yourself. I hadn't seen you go to salon. I never saw you work out. I never saw you center yourself in your well-being. And she, she was quiet, and she was like, and that's my deepest regret. She said, I regret not being aware that, we don't need martyrs in this fight. We need matriarchs. Like you need to be around. It's easy. You only die one time. So you can die for somebody, but what's harder is living for somebody and making sure that you give them a living example of what that looks like. So in having 3 girls and in knowing when I exited my marriage that I was like, I wouldn't want this relationship for them. So I don't need to be in it either. And being able to consistently make decisions that put my well-being and their well-being in a better place so they knew what it looked like and it wouldn't, and they would know it was an option. And one of the reasons why I even knew it was an option because my parents gave an amazing example of partnerships. I would say the strongest thing they ever gave me was their marriage and their relationship and how it really does work. And the nitty gritty, not just like, oh, they love each other. Like, I think my mom's gonna kill my dad, but she's not because she knows that I need him. Like, you know what I mean? Like true, like love isn't this, love is a verb, you know, and we don't always, you know, like each other, but we absolutely love each other and the good outweighs the bad and all these other things. And so, in that, you know, the day-to-day is not always sexy. Let's be real. Like it's not, you know, you're like, God, leave, you snore one more time in my ear, I'm going to take you out. Like, so you just have to be realistic. And I want my kids to know that this is normal. The struggle is real. The suffering, however, the thought that you're doing something wrong, the thought that you should be further ahead than you are can be eliminated. And that's my goal. Like the struggle, you have to build the muscle. You are not going to climb that mountain. You are not going to learn that skill if you don't struggle with it. Right? Like you're going to fall off the bike as you learn how to ride it or any of those examples. But the idea that this isn't exactly the way the process goes, this isn't the struggle that happens. I always say, you know, when I give birth, right, I'm laboring. It hurts. It's hard, but it's giving forth life. So the idea that life in my millennial, bless them, my Gen Zs, I think it is now. Like, I'm like, honey, you, or whatever alphabet they are at this point. But I was like, honey, the pain is part of it. It won't kill you. Like it's the suffering that's the issue. Like a good life isn't not being hurt or being mentally tough or being able to be resilient in that. Let me teach you what it looks like to be an alchemist, right? So basically, let me show you how to turn that pain into power or those wounds into wisdom. Let's talk about how we have to think about, I always say it's not magic, baby, it's mental. 90%, and I used to, you know, work with Olympians, and I've got several friends who are in the league and just a lot of, you know, successful athletes around me. Everybody knows it's 85% mental. Like you can do all this with your talent and you can make sure your body's good to go. But if your mind's off, you're in trouble because that's where it really begins. And so para, even the weekly review in particular, is my opportunity to put my intentions on the ground and see, did I play it off? So as Demir would say, you know, I sit down and I plan out my week. That's practice. And then I'm going to play the week and then I'm going to review it and see. It's like reviewing the tape, right? And I'm going to tweak here and tweak there. And it's not like these huge tweaks. The endurance muscles in yoga, for instance, aren't the big, powerful moves. They're the standing positions. And it's those little muscles that never get touched because we don't stand still long enough that actually promote endurance. And so it's just like that with productivity. It's not sexy, baby. It's your week. Plan your week, run it, you know, and review it. Plan your week. And the goal is to perfect the swing, winning the week, not how well your system looks.
Totally.
It's a long-term thing. You can't think like I'm going to do this in 1 minute. You know, it's a lifestyle.
And I love that you always talk about it's not about perfection. It's never going to be perfect.
Oh no, that's not a thing. Like who got that?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Amazing. I want to know, I'm super curious about your project. What's coming? We talked a bit about your consulting company, but you told me something about the domain and I want
to. So I had to, so I'm going back to school, getting my master's of science in, I just want like instructional design and technology. And then I'm going to get a PhD in leadership and academic advising. And one of my major passions is first gen professionals. So those who are first in that world and what that looks like and not having the social, what's a board? You know, what what are these different frameworks that you have to know to navigate, and what that looks like navigating in certain skin, in certain situations. And so it's just time for me to do that. With that being said, I have to drop a lot because I need to pay attention. It's funny, the only reason I'm not in senior administration because I don't have the paperwork. I have the experience, but in this world, you need the paper. I need the paper. I don't know about other folks, but I get asked for receipts every day to make sure that I actually did the work. So I'm very used to that. And I don't mind that. But what that means is that I have to step back on some of my front-facing leadership positions at work and in my profession. And I'm on several boards and things of that nature. And it was hard. It was a hard decision because I feel like I owe my community this. And I had a dear, dear friend say to me, think about it like you do the kids. 6 years of intensive focus, and everybody's going to benefit. Get the paper, Carrie. So what that means is I'm through October 1st. I start my first class mid-October through October 1st, which correlates perfectly with the Jewish New Year of Rosh Hashanah. So it's just great. But I'm clearing the decks. I am literally clearing my table so I can do the work that's before me. So I am streamlining both what I'm doing with myself, what's going on at home, because there's a lot of transition happening there, and I need to be there. Team B is younger than Team A, and that means I have to show up again in a way that I didn't have to show for a few years because I had them in the house. Work, like my people get me. They hired me to run this program. I'm not going to go serve everybody else. And my 2 to 20 phenomenal, right, student workers, and my 2 full-time staff who are just amazing women of color at that. And we're the only, I think, team that's fully that. Wow. Our very existence is a lesson. And we're different, all from different demographics. And I get the amazing opportunity and privilege of leading these incredible women as professionals and as public servants in strengthening our students and strengthening our institution. And I want to do the job I said yes to. And then there's school, and then there's the business. And what I've done is really tried to integrate my life so that what I'm doing for the business ties into the school work and ties into work. So I haven't strayed too far from my place of service as far as what that looks like. And I really focus on grant leadership and those who are having to put these multi-million-dollar grants on the ground, and what confidence that takes, and what kind of self-organization that takes, and what systems and what clarity, and how you as a leader have to be able to articulate the vision, right? You have to explain why people are doing this so that they can make conscious choices. And so that my next 6 years is really around, that's what academic advising is, right? It's like, chick, you're paying money for this course. Let me help you figure out how you want to use these choices and what platform is best to meet how you want to be and move in this world, not just what you want to do. And so it's my way of helping to free people and empower them through their life journey. It happens to be in education, but what I'm really trying to get you to do is think about, who do you want to be? Forget about what you want to do. Who do you want to be? How do you want to show up? What do you want to experience? And then what major, what platform is best for you to do that for now? Lord knows I've changed my job several times, right? So, and that's the medicine in the applesauce. So that's what Carrie's College Corner will do. It'll focus on leadership. I have a plethora of like student practices and stuff from just being an educator for all these years, but we need better leadership across the board. And so I'm very determined and committed to upping the game there and showing them that it can be done. I get a lot of I can't. And I think it's, there's not any bad teams, there's bad leaders. And so we have to take that extreme ownership and say, all right, we've been gifted the opportunity to pour into these people. We got to do a better job.
Oh, totally.
It's got to be a better job.
Yeah, that's, I'm excited for that, for Carrie's College
Yes.
Corner. Yeah, super cool. I want to finish with two things. First,
Okay.
you have an amazing picture behind you. Can you tell me a bit? It's like also
So good old
right?
Ross. Like, I mean, for some reason they had the most coolest pictures. This picture I saw and had to get it, one because of the red and where the cougs and where crimson and go. But it reminds me of my oldest. She's had that hairstyle a bit, and you know, she's the one that made me a woman. I was a wife and a mother before I was a woman. I graduated college and got married on the same day. Don't do that. Don't do that. Like, really
I'm sorry.
celebrate
Like,
your wins. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Really celebrate your wins. Like as a person to yourself, because the world is going to take you. Like that was something. And she's the most different from me. It's funny. My second child is the one that I think I understand the most because we're similar, and it's easier to parent someone that's similar to you at times. But my oldest, who I adore and has an amazing sense of humor, but she's the one where I learned to be like, whoa, this really isn't about me. My job as a parent is to make sure she has the skill sets to live her life the way she has to live it. And to again learn that alchemy of turning some of her pain and her challenges, right, into power and make it work for her and not internalize. You know, she's a beautiful, darker skinned young lady, and who's now 20. And the world came for her hard in the way, you know, and again, she's got the pretty privilege, but she's also got this darker skin that people have issues with sometimes. And I am just always amazed of her. She also looks incredibly like my mama, who I adore and is my number one role model. And
I love how your face lights.
Yeah, I do. I just am so blessed to have people I not only love, but I like them as people. And I put that up there also because I am the only, let me make sure, I think I'm one of the few Black directors in on a $25,000 campus. I mean, people campus. And I did not realize what that meant to somebody. Till a young woman walked in my office and looked around and she saw that picture. Because I honestly have to say, I think it's the first time I've seen myself on someone's wall. And I was like, okay, you got to bring in some more pictures. But like, you know, like, and so I am who I am. What I love about Washington State is they hired me for who I am. So I am always going to have the back of my students, particularly those who don't have a voice. I am unapologetically dogged about doing right by people. And we are what we call a land grant, which means that we're supposed to be by the people and for the people. So I joke kind of, you know, I'm like, we're not just for the apple growers or the orchard owners or the farm owners. We're for the apple pickers as well. And we need to research all that is citizens in the state of Washington, because that's where the peace, that's where the healing, that's where the solutions are going to come from. You know, one group didn't make the problem. One group's not going to solve the problem. And so the truth is we have to work together. We only do that from a place of, and I'll leave you with this equation that I think is really important. So when you multiply a half times a half, you get a fourth, right? So they shrink. But when you multiply a full person, it doesn't mean they don't have flaws, but a fully realized person who is secure in self with another, it's a stronger one, right? Like it's a synergistic one. And that's really the goal here. It's the idea that is exponential, and let me help you be a stronger one. So whoever you mix with, you're not shrinking, right? That lower vibration isn't pulling on people, and they're not pulling on you. You're strong enough to pull out or decide, you know, how you're going to engage to reserve your energy with the world, you know, your positive energy of that which the world needs. So again, it's about that energy management more than just time management, productivity, or what you're doing. It's about how are you being in this world, and let's take it a little deeper. Most people just get to like the second brain, and that's fine, right? They know more than they did before. But for those who want to go deeper with me, I'm working on some things in the next few years where, whether it's a boot camp or, you know, some kind of intensive, that those who are ready to go there, it'll be there.
That's so cool. We will follow you closely. I have a quote from you
Okay.
that we can close with if you want.
Okay.
So it goes, the way you live your life is the ultimate form of expression.
It is, right? So I always say, you have your resume goals and you have your retirement goals. And what do you want when you die, that eulogy? Like, what do you want people to say of you? And so start with the end in mind. Sit down and figure out what you want to leave with the world, what you want to contribute, how you want people to feel about you, whether it's your co-workers or your supervisees or your children or your partner, and paint the picture of that person, and then make choices that moves you towards that person. And I think that's the best way. That's your expression, because we are leaving an imprint on this earth. And we do it. You can do it in so many different ways. People say all the time, I'm not creative. And I'm like, if you're here, you're creative. What you're not, what you're really saying is you're not consciously creating. And we are powerful beings, and words matter. And what we believe about ourselves and of ourselves is really important. So take back that power and stop allowing people to manipulate you towards their end, and figure out what your end is, and be in collaboration versus competition to create that experience together. Right? We just came out of a planning session, our summer planning session, and we did. Brendan Burchard does this great exercise around primary aspiration goals. And we went through, and these are the 3 things we're going to be for each other, right? These are the 3 things we're going to be for our communities. And these are the 2 areas of competencies that we need to level up in order to realize this vision. And that's what you do with yourself, and that's what you do with your family. You do it on every part, which is why para is that I use my life areas, because I start with where I love and where I have responsibility, and I make the vision clear for myself there, because there's not one of those areas where I don't have to lead. I don't have a co at this point, so I have to be clear so that I don't always hit the mark, but I'm damn close to it, right? Like I know that I'm in the vicinity, at least. I'm not climbing the wrong ladder. And so your life is an expression, and it's an incredible opportunity and privilege, because not everybody gets to own their time. And if you are listening to this, 9 times out of 10, you are owning your time. You have the choice to listen to this, right? And so my encouragement is, know that time is a resource and not a management tool. That it's there to help you realize, just like your talent and your money and your, in your body and your environment is all there to help you to realize or manifest that vision of who you're trying to be and how you're trying to be in the world. So yeah.
Wow. Thank you. That's so beautiful. It's I have to take a moment and breathe here. Like, really, really beautiful. Thank you, Carrie. You are an inspiration, and we are so lucky to have you as a mentor, to have you as a friend, and we've learned a ton from you. And the way you just appear and are there, present, your presence, and you're funny, you're warm, you're amazing. Thank you. We love you so much.
Oh, and I love you, and I'm so glad we got together in Long Beach, and just a friend for life. If everything stopped today, it was all worth it, as far as just who I get to meet and who gets to be in my life. And that's the other thing, you make those choices and you don't know who you're destined to meet. Yeah. And so sometimes it's even not about the project. Again, it's just a swing, just show up and look where I am now, right?
Yeah, like, look who we are.
You across the world. So that's awesome.
Exactly. It's like magic. It's magic, but it's not.
Yeah, I know, right? Like it's pretty cool.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. People are gonna love listening to you.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
that's gonna be amazing. Yeah. Talk very soon. Thank you so much.
All right. Love you.
Namaste.
Namaste.